I think that there needs to be a realistic approach to this, and it needs to not be based on emotion. It needs to be based on facts. It needs to be based on what other sports have done. It needs to be
clear evidence.
And it can't be.
How many rumors are just like spraying left and right?
And
it's just messy.
It's messy, and it's not fair. And I wonder too, if we get to a certain degree, is there like a defamation thing that comes out? If you can't really prove something about someone and it's not true, and you're saying all these.
Well, I know there's certain players in the industry that are sick of getting bullied. Not going to say by who, but and they are pretty close to doing something like that. So it's sad. Wow. What's going on? My name is Tyson McGuffin. Welcome to the McGuffin Show. It's a beautiful day here in Coeur d'Alene. We just bought a new whip. Just got a brand new sauna at the crib. Yeah, just got back from Phoenix. Some topics we're going to be talking about today is the double gold in St. George. Took the family to Zion. Paddle Delamination. There's plenty of buzz going on around that. James and I are totally cool, by the way. It has to do with RN, if you know what I mean. Travis and Leia. Don't know what I think about it, but I'm going to leave it at that. There's some people complaining about my serve. Brendon Long, the OG. Brendon who? Gladiator level on Minecraft. Let's see here. There was a fiasco that took place in Daytona. Can't mention any names, but let's just say that pros are not allowed to go through the PPA anymore to get host families. So that puts a huge dampener on that. Susannah, Barr, and Zay Navatil kicked my butt in St. George. Susannah Barr played out of her head. I know K-Mack has got a lot of respect for her game. Threw out the first pitch, got roasted on my post, throwing out the first pitch, kind of a no-win situation, if you know what I mean. And Izzy and Alex Pereira at UFC 287 this last Saturday, sick fight. But anyhow, got my day ones here. Got my wife here rocking that TM beanie. If you guys want this beanie, you can go to TysonMcGuffin.com and purchase this beanie today. Also, drinking a Miller Lite, fine Pilsner beer. It's a great beer, and happy to be with Miller. K-Mack, how we doing, buddy?
Doing great, man. You guys are looking sharp, and you know this is going to be a fun podcast if you're starting early with the Miller. So let's do this thing.
Down the hatch, and it is noon.
It's afternoon. We're all right.
Little R&R.
Little celebration day. I mean,
little R&R. K-Mack, when's your next TM camp?
It's coming up in about a week. Here. I think it's the 21st, 22nd. Had a little bit of time home, but I've got Yuvi and Tanya here staying at the guest house doing some training.
Yuvi?
With me. Yeah, so they've been hanging out. Sweet. It's been a lot of fun, but no,
Yuvi's great.
Been as busy as I've been kind of my whole pickleball career the last couple months. Been on the road 3 weeks out of each month the last couple. So it's nice to be back home. But yeah, good problem to have, staying busy and just riding this pickleball wave, as is, everybody in this world right now.
Love it. This guy's crushing it. Doing commentating for PPA, slamming out camps left and right. Father of 4, and just happy to have K-Mack on my team. So appreciate you, buddy.
No, appreciate it, man. Thank you.
Okay, so first and foremost, I finally got my head out of my you-know-what, played some decent pickleball. It's about time I showed up and proved that I am still worthy, if you know what I mean. No Man's Land Pickleball didn't give me a whole lot of love. They generally don't. They're saying that my hands are not elite, and I don't do this, and I don't do that, and all I have is effort and all the above. Shove it, sit on it and shove it. That's what I gotta say.
That.
Come out on the court.
Okay, come on. Okay, and especially from some boys that are like 2 hours north of us. I mean, come on, show a fellow PNW guy some love. Anyhow,
I didn't realize that those guys don't give you a lot of love. Are they pretty critical?
They don't give many people love.
No. I think they give plenty of people love.
They do? Okay.
Yeah, I think they've mentioned that I'm a good singles player, but have just kind of like dogged my doubles game, said that my hands aren't elite, said that I'm not there anymore, and all the above. So, obviously, those guys do a great job, and I find myself weekly reading that blog, as with most people. So. Kudos to those guys. Those guys have have a nice following and all that. But quit talking about me, okay? Quit talking about Daddy over here. Daddy's back, okay? Exactly. Anyhow, so St. George. We ended up flying in there Saturday. Took my little man Ty, both babies, wifey. Kids were crying the whole time. Meg and I damn near choked them out towards the end of the flight, if you know what I mean. But we flew in Saturday night, went up to Zion Sunday, had a great time up there. Beautiful weather. That place is a complete zoo. Then people everywhere taking photos. They have like this, shuttle bus that cruises kind of in and out. And once you get into the entrance, like the roads are super narrow and you're, climbing up mountains and stuff like that. I was
it's a little
joking
sketchy.
to my wife. Oh, it's very sketchy. It's very suspect.
Sketchy with tourists that are camera happy. And he was kind of giving me a hard time. And I wasn't trying to make fun of them, but like you'd see these people that were probably from, terrain not like this at all, right? So like not used to driving on a side of a mountain, not used to standing on a side of a mountain, let alone, and they've got like grandma out there on the ledge, her hat's about to blow off, and they're trying to get this beautiful picture. And I was kind of laughing because it's great to capture memories, but in the same sense, I was like, the pictures aren't ever that good.
Welcome to the danger zone.
So the picture's not as good as the real thing. I'm like, that just seems so dangerous. I'm like, there's no way we're parking and getting our children out of it.
But yeah, park was packed, shuttle, like this big giant shuttle, literally like that driver needs to be paid $50 to $100 per hour, because trying to like give a tour on the mic as they're like winding around these windy roads that are super narrow. I could not get paid to do that. There's no way. But anyhow, kids had a good time. It's very emotional up there. Like we ended up going to a restaurant later on, and kids are crying and the families are. I mean, it's like going to Disneyland. It's the same thing, right? It's very emotional. You're having a good time,
kids,
and then sugar, crying.
Hey, but at least it's not just our kids.
No, of course.
It's so funny. Like, I feel like that's just the way it is for like every like parent when you've got young kids. Like, even when you like do everything that you can for them, you go to like Disneyland or someplace great for them, you're on as a parent so much that Callie and I joke, like every time we take one of those trips, like we need a vacation from our vacation, right? Because it feels
it's like a
you're
detox.
Just so focused, on point, heads on a swivel, always
So
watching
true.
them. It's tough for sure. Did you guys go before the tournament then?
So went Sunday. Okay. Didn't do any hiking. Obviously, we just kind of drove the car through, cruised around.
We didn't tell them. We got lost, actually. We went to the wrong, like a whole different part of the park at some point. It was kind of crazy, but drove all the way through, hit snow, so much snow that the road was closed and that we had to turn back around and go back into town. But it was good. It made a full day out of it that way.
Yeah, went to a restaurant that night. Kids are crying. And Mac was, first he had a phone in his hand, and I'm like, no, let's take the phone out of his hand, because anytime he gets tired, he just starts throwing things, right? So I'm like, gosh, here we are at a restaurant. Last thing I want is for him to like drop a bomb on somebody sitting right next to us. He's got a total arm. Anyhow, so it's like my wife and I are bickering over this stupid phone, and I'm like, no, take it away. She ends up giving Mac a toothbrush.
Like a little rubber
Guess what he does?
Toothbrush.
The guy throws like a 40-yard bomb to the table next to us. Luckily hits the ground, but like the guy thought it was food. He was totally cool. He had kids there as well. And anyhow, just chaos. It's just, days like that, it's great. You do everything for your kids, but it's just bound to be chaotic, right?
You gotta accept it.
So Tyson, I have to ask you real quick with that. How do you manage? Because a lot of the pros, I mean, let's face it, like a lot of your top pro competitors are single guys in their 20s. They're not dealing with any
living the life,
living the life, right? So like when you go to a tournament, you bring the fam with. How do you like compartmentalize, being dad, helping out, while at the same time mentally trying to stay as focused as possible? Are there any tricks that you use, or do you find that more challenging?
Yeah, no, of course. So, obviously days that we have off, like that Sunday, we'd kind of, planned it like before, where we were going to spend the whole day with the kids. Right. So days like that, I just try to fully embrace, the important people in my life, like my wife and my kids, and I'm trying to cut down my screen time as well. That's been healthy for my marriage, cut down the screen time. So just I think just trying to like, obviously I know my time's valuable, so anytime I have off time days, it's just it's time to like marinate with the family, get as much family time in as we can, and obviously during practice days, like my wife here plays a very large part in all that, handling stuff with my agent, checking in with all my departments, handling babysitters on the road. But yeah, so practice days like Monday, Tuesday, woke up, played Played for like 4 or 5 hours in the morning. Wife had the kids. As she has the kids at the hotel, you know, she's trying to do work and all the above and multitask as she usually does. And so generally when I get back, you know, she's a little burnout. You know, she's a little edgy. She's a little edgy. It's correct. So it's the old tap in, right? It's daddy's turn. So I usually just push him in a closet and lock the door and then go down to the hot tub. I'm just kidding. No. So once I relieve her, you know, I'm a big water guy, you know, as you know. So at the hotel that we were at, we ended up going down to the hot tub. We swam and did a bunch of fun stuff like that. So I think, yeah, just use resources. During match days. Love our children, but we are not bringing them to tournaments. Yeah. So we usually find a babysitter, or we usually find like a pickleball grandma that has been following me for a very long time. You know Deb Campbell from like Jolt Therapy. Deb and Bill, they own like the massage gun company. Yeah. Anyhow, so she's such a sweetie. Right, nice. She drove like 6 hours from, you know, Goodyear, Arizona, all the way to St. George. Watched the kids pretty much all day long for a couple days. I ended up giving her a shout out during my singles interview. And anyhow, it's nice to have good support around you. We couldn't do it if we didn't have that support. Very necessary. And obviously, anytime we're at home, we have a full-time nanny. Her name's Elizabeth. She's great. And I would say it takes a village, and the days that I have off, I just try to cherish those days and like spend as much time as I can with the family.
A little fun fact though, there's been a few tournaments where it's been like the most chaotic, I would say, when we bring, you know, Ty's pretty independent now. He loves to play with kids. That's pretty easy. The babies, we have a routine. We have babysitters. We figure that out. But Skylar, you know, adds a whole nother degree. And I know you know Kyle, like Sky loves Sky to death, but he just has tons of questions. He's like, you know, essentially like focused. There's like lots and lots going on.
Curious, you know.
But I think every tournament that we've brought Sky to, Tyson's got a title. So in Newport, he got a triple crown, and the 2 times in Atlanta, he got a title.
Both won men's dubs.
So I think,
and Sky's going to Newport here next weekend. So hey,
good luck charm.
Could be another double gold.
So I think there's something to, and I don't know, maybe I know you've said it before, but like sometimes when you're not so focused on yourself and competition, and you can just kind of trust your fitness and trust all the prep and all the work, because he puts in so much, you know, leading up to. I think sometimes a little bit of distraction, at least in these cases, has kind of actually turned out to be a positive thing.
No, I did some media stuff at the Diamondbacks game, and like one of the questions that they asked me was, how do I juggle all that stuff? And when I have the kids there and it's like a little chaotic and stuff, it just allows me to get out of my own way. And sometimes when it's just me, or like I'm traveling by myself and all the focus is on me, and I like think that it's all on me, and I'm not like playing for my wife, or I'm not playing for my team, then it's tough to like bring a level that's good enough. So yeah, it's just interesting how if you don't focus on yourself, you can go out there and play at a level that's pretty stinking high. And just with having a little chaos around you takes the focus off yourself, and it's interesting kind of how that works. But not sure if that's the case for everybody, but it's happened to me a couple times.
We'll take it. We're gonna run with it.
Right, for sure. Anyhow, so I ended up practicing Monday, Tuesday with Frederico. Got some good touches in. And used the same paddle all week. As K-Mack knows, I'm very meticulous about equipment, the way that I sit down on my bench or my routines. I'm a huge believer of like envisioning all that stuff and seeing it before it happens. And anyhow, so I was playing well with a particular paddle, and this goes right into the paddle delam situation, if you know what I mean. So anyhow, so Monday, Tuesday, I practiced with the paddle, felt great. Didn't have that hollow sound. Woke up Wednesday morning, obviously very cold outside. The paddles, being, dealt with different conditions and stuff like that. I'd played indoors Monday, Tuesday, went outside Wednesday. I think we started to play at like 10 a.m. It was like 35 degrees at 10 a.m. So don't know the exact science behind why paddles get delaminated, but I would assume it has to do with weather conditions and stuff like that. It definitely plays a part. Right. So I played my first 2 matches, felt great. And then, which brings me to the Travis topic. Love you, TR, by the way. Anyhow, so playing Travis, obviously playing well with the paddle. I'm, in a headspace where I'm just trying to be competitive. I'm trying to be a savage out there. I'm focusing on my own game. The last thing I'm focused on is a paddle being delaminated. So one thing that I definitely noticed is that towards the end of game one, the paddle seemed a little hot. And then early on in game two, the paddle got extremely hot. Once I really came to the conclusion that there was something wrong with the paddle at the beginning of game two, K-Mack knows this. Like, I work my butt off I've worked my butt off to get to the position that I'm in now. And the last thing I would ever do is cheat or use a delaminated paddle when I know that it's delaminated. Plain and simple. Early in game two, could definitely hear a difference in the paddle. It felt different. I put the paddle down. I told Travis there was something goofy about the paddle. I went back to Old Faithful, obviously lost game two, rolled Travis in game three. After the match, Travis was like, hey, he's like, I'm gonna challenge that paddle. I said, that's totally fine if you want to take it, and take it to Don Stanley and see what's wrong with it. That is totally fine. So, and then obviously ended up playing Connor after that, beat Connor like 3-2, played very well. And Travis just put out a podcast yesterday on his Tennis Sucks podcast. Don't know why they named it that, but his podcast is called Tennis Sucks Podcast. Anyhow, he had mentioned that he actually gave me like a lot of respect and said that, I played well throughout the whole tournament, so disregard the paddle. I played very well. Just his main focus is there obviously needs to be a policy put in place. I'm a huge advocate. I'm a huge believer for putting a policy in place. I think there needs to be a testing machine on site. It's very necessary. There's so many paddles that are being delaminated. And there's plenty of paddles that I've lost to that I've never challenged because I'm not that guy, that are very delaminated. Right. And I think now that people are educated, we're all in the space of like understanding the sound when it's delaminated. There needs to be some universal thing with the refs, and they need to understand that when they hear that sound or when they see the pace on the ball, I mean, like a certain amount of pace that makes sense for like an average top 5 guy. But when it's 20 miles an hour faster, or take a look at Thomas Wilson when you're like off your back foot hitting a third ball. I mean, Travis told me this, not to knock at Thomas at all, because it's not on Thomas. But Travis was telling me that he was playing Thomas at a tournament, I think in Arizona. It was at the Legacy event. And it was in the morning. It was a little colder. Anyhow, Thomas was using his carbon. Don't know what carbon. But Thomas hit a drive off his back foot from like 3 feet beyond the baseline and tattooed Travis directly in the chest. Travis has got some pretty quick hands, and that's what's scary about paddles being delaminated. Like, singles, it's one thing. You can hit people off the court. I think you're at a huge advantage. But doubles, like you can take somebody's jugular out. Like it comes hot, and I don't think it's fair. And obviously there just needs to be something put in place. There's betting,
trying to come in.
Sports betting, coming in the game, and there's a lot more brands coming in the game. Pros are getting paid a lot more. I just think we need to have an even playing field, because when you can use a paddle that's delaminated, and if you're a top 30 player, it's a huge equalizer if you're playing somebody who's top 5 or top 10. And something I'm going to mention too is that Mr. Newman, I played Riley in the men's double semi. Right away, both Brendon and I are like, okay, there's something very wrong here. This paddle sounds like a bazooka, right? And the funny thing is that Travis was sitting in VIP as the match was going on. Travis was looking at me laughing. So obviously there's certain people that know that sound, right? And it's not on James. I'm gonna mention this, but it's definitely not on James at all. I had mentioned to James at least 3 times. I'm like, bro, there's something very wrong with that paddle. That paddle sounds like a shotgun. It's very hollow. It's coming off hot. Like you should tell Rye. Nothing happened. All good. And what I hate too is that I had mentioned to the ref during the match, I'm like, hey, I think we can both hear the sound. There's something very wrong here. I'm not going to be the guy that like challenged the paddle, puts me in like a tough spot. I think Riley's a boy. I used to play with Riley, back in the day. Like I don't want to be put in the position to have to challenge a paddle. It puts me in a tough spot. So I just let it go on. I didn't say anything. And, to Riley's disadvantage, I mean, honestly, yes, any high ball he got, he was putting a hole through us. But sure. I think a lot of people can watch that match and see that Ry was having a hard time getting his thirds down. Ry was having a hard time in transition, and he was popping dinks up. So,
but here,
go ahead. What's up?
Okay, yeah. So I think a few things. I think one, I mean, I think this is a much bigger problem than maybe even we think, in terms of we have to understand what's causing this. Like, yes, I'm sure there's intentional delamination, but also, as we know now, there can be accidental delamination. There can be delamination that takes place during your match. So right. I think that we have to understand what causes it. We need to understand like what types of paddles it could happen to. I think we need to understand the testing and how the testing is conducted. There needs to be uniform testing. My whole thought process though is great. Like, you have to play with new paddles each tournament. You go get your paddles tested on the opening day of the tournament. Great. What if the paddles delaminates mid-match? In Tyson's right. case in point, right? What if the paddle delaminates? What if someone intentionally delaminates it before and after so the whole thing, I think where this boils down to is I guess to me, it's not the same, obviously, as a broken ball, but a broken ball is the same thing. You start out playing with a ball that's regular, it's good, it's approved by all the players. During the match, some player notices that there's a problem with the ball, and that's on the players too. Like, it's not, I mean, the refs, yes, like the ref can look at it and the ref can supply another ball. But unfortunately, I think it has to be a group decision, right, on the court to say like, hey, this doesn't sound right. But yeah, it shouldn't be on the players to like turn people in. And especially when we don't fully understand the problem. And I don't even know that there's full regulation on the problem. We don't really know. We don't have a set guideline. So right. I don't know. I think that that's a much bigger problem there. And case in point too, just the same, like, you started to really notice once it became an issue, but maybe Riley didn't ever notice. You know what I mean? And, I know Riley's a competitive dude, and if he felt the paddle was giving him a disadvantage and he was spraying balls, he right. would have put that paddle down and get a new paddle. Right. You know what I mean? Yeah. So maybe he didn't even know. So I think that it can't necessarily be on the players, especially in a competitive setting where that's the last thing you're thinking about and worrying about. It should be on you to figure it out. So yeah, there needs to be, I don't know what the solution is, but I feel like we're really far from it, unfortunately.
Yeah, no, I agree with you, Meg. I think that's the biggest common misconception that I would say I disagree with kind of what's been said, online over the last few days, is people saying like a pro knows exactly when they've got a delaminated paddle. And I think a lot of these pros over the last few months, they're using new paddles. The technology's changing all the time. Even just within the Selkirk line, from switching from some of the Vanguards to the Power Air to the 002, they all have a little bit of a different feel and a different sound. So I think we're all just barely learning about this delamination, the fact that it can change instantly. And so I don't think we need to think that like, okay, if someone's potentially using a paddle that's delaminated, that means that they're a cheater. That means that they're for sure trying to get an unfair advantage. Sometimes you just don't know. So I think the solution might be, obviously get a better way to test it. Maybe it's the referees just become really educated on it to where they can kind of tell from the sound, or there's some sort of way to say, okay, hit a couple shots. That's way too big. That's way too fast. We understand what the parameters are, but yeah, we're going to have to go with a different system. And then I don't think that, because I've heard some people say, well, just let it be a free for all. Let like all the paddles be delaminated, and that way it's at least fair. I think that's a bad idea too, because it's dangerous. And Tyson referenced it in doubles, especially in some of those hand battles.
Yeah, no.
By the time you're hitting one shot, if they stick the next one, it's already like getting on you. By the time you even have to like react, you just don't have any reaction time. Someone's going to get hit in the eye. And it's, it's more of a need for protective eyewear, honestly, while these paddles are out, because, the story of Travis getting hit, hitting the chest off of, a Thomas Wilson drive, falling away. Like, it's becoming a bit of a safety issue as well. And I think it's a bigger issue and a bigger potential advantage than even the grit and the spin. Definitely more of a safety issue.
No, for sure.
So
but I think
we got a long way to go.
Even if we educate the refs, right, and then it's a sound, right? I feel like that's so subjective. Yes,
you're right. It is.
And so that's what's tricky too. it needs to start subjective, just like a ball, right? Like you're like, oh, something's wrong with this ball. And then what do? You look at it and you determine, oh, it is cracked. So I think that there has to be something like subjectively you hear something and say, oh, I think this is it. But there has to be a secondary way to determine it that's not so subjective. If not, I think as a tour, you're opening yourselves up to a bunch of other issues, you know, having high stakes and then having a rule be subjective. I don't know.
Right. No, I agree with you. It's just really complex because we were talking about this. Let's say someone gets their sticker, they get their paddle tested before the match. It passes for grit, it passes for delamination, but it starts to become delaminated during the match. Now, what do you do if you're complaining? You're saying, "Hey, that's a delaminated paddle." The player could say, "Hey, listen, it got tested. I have the sticker."
Right.
You probably can't hold up a match for however long to get tested again. I mean, maybe there's got to be backup paddles, but yeah, it's going to be a really complicated situation. And I'm glad I'm not one of the people making the regulations for this because it does seem like a very complicated issue.
It's a little messy. The weird thing too is that there's certain paddles where when they delam, you get an advantage out of it, and there's others that don't. Like the Yola, prime example. If that paddle delams, you get nothing from it. It's dead.
Right.
But with
it's always an advantage.
Right, but with an 002, that thing fires.
But
it gets hot,
only
and
for so long.
Well, as I'm saying, and the weird thing too is that there's a peak phase where you're still able to play with a delam paddle and you get the benefits. And then once it gets out of that peak phase, it gets so stupidly hot that if you even touch it, it sprays.
My last little thing on this, and then I think we can move on, or at least for me, but I think the last thing is like you've been with Selkirk for 7 years now. There's been various testing measures like over the years. Obviously, Selkirk has in testing, they obviously work with a regulatory agency and have to do, I don't know all the ins and outs of it, but I know that they are very, very strict about all of those things. And so one of the things that I was going to say is there's been different tournaments, like Nationals was one. There's been a few where you've given all your paddles and had them tested and you've never, ever had an issue. So like in your case, like, we would have never even thought about it. Like it doesn't even, cross your mind. And so, yeah, I just think, it's tricky. It's hard too I think that's why we have to understand more about what creates this situation and what can cause this, because I think it would be unfair for the paddle manufacturers to get too big of a black eye over something that just randomly can happen or develop.
Very much so. Yeah, I think this issue is obviously not on Selkirk, and that's what Travis also stated, during his videos, that has nothing to do with Selkirk. All it has to do with, PPA's policy and guidelines and stuff like that. So, like what my wife just said, been with Selkirk for the last 8 years, never had a paddle delam like that. They're obviously looking more into the issue and trying to figure it out. And like what she mentioned, there's a brother that we actually just met. His name's Tom Barnes. And Tom was actually sent to MLP just to get, I guess, more educated with the testing process and all that. So Selkirk is, they're using their resources. They're trying to get as educated as possible and really kind of get down.
This is so important to them.
No,
it's the most important thing to them.
The last thing they want is to have their name thrown around that Selkirk paddles are getting delaminated.
Yeah. And it's not just that, like, they want to be well within and then provide a product that, everybody can use and feel confident about, and which they've always done. So, I think it's just something that there's a lot of question marks and we got to figure out.
Well, and I'll say this, and I know it's subjective, it's my opinion, but I would say to anybody that's, with all this drama that's critical of either your integrity or Selkirk's, knowing both, you and Selkirk are not a cut corners type person or company at all. Right. They've always gone the longer, more quality route, even if that meant sacrificing short-term profits a little bit. They've always gone more quality, and just with everything that you're about. I mean, you're the put in the hard yards guy, right? You're the gym guy. You want to work hard, but you want to get an edge, sure, but you're not the type that would ever cut corners intentionally. So whenever I heard that, like, even without talking to you about it, just I knew that it wouldn't be the case like people were kind of making it out to be. Some people, anyways.
For sure. Thanks, buddy. Yeah, there's plenty of buzz going on social media. I'll tell you what. My, oh, my. Okay, so double gold. Great weekend for me. Catherine and I ended up obviously losing to Susannah and Zane. They played great. Susannah does a lot of things well. She hits this hybrid drop that gets down in a hurry. Zane was able to kind of close in off of that. She's got some pretty good defense. She dinks very aggressively out of the air. Technique-wise, don't know how she's able to put the ball in play, but hey, it doesn't matter how it looks.
Pure pickleball.
Doesn't matter how it looks. If you can get the job done in your own way, great, and kudos to her. And she fights like there's no tomorrow. And probably one of the tougher females that I've played against. So kudos to them. They ended up making a good run, beat Jansen and Rettenmaier, ended up losing in three, losing 11-7 in the third against Anna and James, dropped down and beat Riley and Coop, which I thought would never happen. Made Catherine and I feel much better, that's for sure. But Catherine and I ended up going the long route. I think we went 5-1 or 6-1 that day. Ended up playing Elise Jones and Spencer Smith in the fifth and sixth match. Ended up taking fifth. But and Brendon Long. First time playing with Brendon. If you guys don't know, Brendon reached gladiator level on Minecraft. Very nerdy.
I don't know if it's Minecraft. I think it might be a different one. Is it, Kyle?
Is it World of
Warcraft? You got it.
No, I'm pretty sure it's mine. No, in his intro it said Minecraft.
It might be Minecraft.
Okay, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm wrong.
Okay.
I know they mentioned World of Warcraft though in the intro too. Maybe he's a multi-game player.
Okay, I love it. Oh, because my
epic gladiator battles in Minecraft.
Oh, in Minecraft.
It is Minecraft.
Got it. My bad.
Mama.
Shame on me.
Anyhow,
I'm
Brendon
sorry.
also, just like K-Mack here, used to play professional poker, has a very analytical mindset, very cerebral, knows his patterns, likes his matchup. One of the phrases he used was, that's my matchup. That's my matchup.
That's my matchup.
So many times he's grinding people. Or he would tell me before the match, he's like, I can beat this guy cross. Once I beat him cross and I get a ball out of the air, then I'm going to poke it line. And he's like, I'm going to win that matchup, And anyhow, he played the left better than I totally thought he would. He took a lot of balls out of the air, leaned in well, used his leverage. Anytime he got pulled out of position, he would use this little outside edge backhand dink kisser, and he'd get a little topspin, yank it back cross. He can dink inside out as well. He's got some pretty clubby hands, likes his little backhand speed up. And for a guy that's using a Yola, gets a ton of pop off that paddle. And something that he does better than most is that on his fourth, he's able to get so much bite when he's out and extended and he's dealing with a ball that's very low. Anyhow, his fourth ball is much bigger than mine. So taking a look at game 5 in the finals, that was one of the reasons why we kind of half stack towards the end of game 5, because they kept Deca was dropping cross court. I'm not able to lean as well. I don't have as much on my fourth, so it kind of made sense on the serving side, put me on the left, on the returning side, put Brendon on the left. And something I love about Brendon, man, not only does he have a lot of belief and a lot of confidence in his game, but he's got some pretty big cojones. And any time Riley was talking trash to him, I thought there was no way nerdy Brendon would be barking back. You bet your ass he did. You bet your ass he did. He came barking back. Riley said no, no, no. And then Rye tried to speed up at Brendon, and Brendon swatted it back and said, "That's a terrible speed up. Don't ever come again." He did. "That's a terrible speed up. Don't be coming here, brother."
Don't do it.
Anyhow, and then then later on in the match, Rye had mentioned that Brendon was getting tight, and then because Brendon ended up missing a drop, and then Riley very next point ends up missing a drop, and Brendon's like, "Well, you're tighter." Anyhow, it's so much banter back and forth. But I mean, and something that I had kind of mentioned to Brendon, early on, or before the match was, hey, just make sure you're calculated, with your offense. At Riley obviously has some pretty clubby hands, and he didn't listen to me at all. He didn't. He fired. I kid you not. He grinded James out. Granted, I think. Most of us saw that. James got a little tight. James was kind of having a hard time in transition. He was missing some dinks. But head to head, I would assume Brendon probably beat Rye 60 to 70% of the time. And generally, Brendon was going first. So for a guy that doesn't have a whole lot of match experience, playing guys like that on that stage, he looked good. He looked very comfortable. And not only did he play well on Friday, but he obviously showed up and showed out on Saturday. And that's his first time on Championship Saturday. and he's never lost on championship Saturday, if you know what I mean. But no, I mean, you know, and taking a look at the final, he didn't play well in game 2 and game 3. He kind of fell apart a little bit on the left. Towards the end of game 3, we were down big, like 2-10. I ended up hinting at the fact that we should put me on the left, and so he fully agreed. So we ended up putting me on the left. We gained some momentum towards the end of game 3. I think brought it back to like 7-10 or 8-10. Ended up losing game 3, kept me on the left in game 4, won game 4, and then game 5 was insanity, pure insanity. Deckel had a sitting duck with his name on it at 10-8. We had no business winning that point. Deckel like dropped the ball cross. Brendon hit a 4th. Deckel hit a 5th cross, dropped 1. And then Brendon's like out and extended, probably chasing way too much trash, ends up popping it up, is just a sitting duck waiting to get a dart put through his chest. And Deckel ends up missing the high ball, and I would assume that Deckel probably did not sleep that night. But we ended up
reliving that point.
Oh my gosh, we ended up using that and got some life back, and played well towards the end of game 5 there. But I think Brendon's stock has definitely gone up. Talk about a guy who didn't even get drafted on the Challenger Series, man. I mean, crazy. You know, obviously played Daytona for Miami, got kind of bounced around in the shuffle draft, played very well. I ended up getting hurt on that Saturday, so he ended up kind of stepping in for me, played very well, you know, won some big matches. And talk about a guy that's been playing for a long time. I was listening to James's podcast this morning, and his guest was Brendon. I was hoping to get Brendon on my podcast and be the first one. But anyhow, Brendon's been playing pickleball for 16 years.
That's insane.
Isn't that crazy?
I didn't know it was that long. I knew it was like 7 or 8 years in that range. I had no idea it was
16 years, man. No, it's crazy. Funny thing is that we were 0 for 3 on match points. I think the score was like, was it 12-11 or like 11-10 in game 5. And we were 0 for 3 with me on the left. And I'm sitting there thinking, I'm like, gosh, we have one more match point here. Let's not lose the same way. So I'm like, Brendon, get over here. Put Brendon on the left. Put my ass back on the right. Put a skirt on me. And that was the match point that
took us in.
Yeah, for sure. But
so a couple things that really impressed me that I'll just kind of highlight that you've kind of already referenced is obviously like super impressive. Not a lot of people have broken through to win a gold in the PPA that haven't been already the established names that we're used to, right? So obviously he had a very good partner in you, but still that's an amazing run for somebody who, you know, hasn't been on that stage before. So first off, and we've talked about this, you can't over respect people. So like talking about like the match with Riley, right? You get to that level, these guys, these top players are going to talk to you. They're going to try to break your confidence. And I thought it was so impressive to me that he was able to give it back to him a little bit, because if you fold in those moments, it has nothing to do with your physical skills. That's just kind of your emotional control and your ability to just believe in yourself in that moment. And then also we keep hearing about like the tennis players are going to come in and start dominating because they're so physically gifted. Well, to me, what stood out about your guys' win was the analytics and the cerebral ability to find patterns and to make adjustments. I thought it was so smart that you spent the whole tournament putting Brendon on the left where he played great, but Colin and Deckel started to just grind him down, make him see more and more balls. He started to lose his confidence a little bit. And that's when you guys made the switch. You can grind with the best of them. You can think all day long over there. So just the ability to make those switches in that moment as the pressure and as the dynamic changed. I thought you guys did such a great job of coming in with a great game plan, but shifting that game plan as you felt the tide change a little bit. So awesome win. Super proud of you guys, and super, as everybody is, super impressed with how well Brendon played on that stage in that big of a moment. To come out with the win is just absolutely huge. So
there's been 3 men's teams that have won PPA titles this year. Who are those 3 teams?
Well, obviously Ben and Colin.
Yeah.
You guys, and then J-Dub and Dylan, right?
Boom. Yeah.
Boom. Got it.
That is the 3. You know, it was my first time this year in a championship Saturday, and You know what? I have been lacking confidence, been second guessing myself, you know, been, I don't know, been a little down and out. My wife can totally vouch. I've just been, you know, down and dark and not trusting myself and injured and nobody to play with and using a ball machine and like, bro, just going through it and could not get out of my own way. And literally to the point where, and you know this, like I've lost faith in my rolly drop. Like I've been having to just guide and steer and go to this elementary drop because I don't have a lot of bodies around me. I've lost confidence, and it's like I've been living and dying by what I do well, and that's like adding variety in on the forehand side. And like one of my main strengths that I used to have has gone away, and I've had to go to like guiding and steering. Well, something I figured out over the weekend just with like a little added confidence is I found it again. And not only did I find it again, but I spent a couple days in Phoenix playing with some high level guys, and my drop has been dialed. I'm trusting the spin. I'm trusting like my tip down little, you know, inside out drop when I'm on the left. Plain and simple, like I've had so much weird PTSD with just getting a stupid drop in the kitchen. Makes no sense. I can hit 40 dinks all day. I can bang serves. I can make 95% of my drives, but I just had a hard time trusting my drop, or trusting like that hybrid drop that gets down in a hurry. That way I don't have to take that extra pit stop coming in. And anyhow, just honestly, it's huge for me to get over the hump. I know it's healthy for my wife to see me in a very good headspace again. And yeah, just for all the viewers out there, like don't ever count yourself out. And you know, even if you think you've lost your identity, like keep going back to the drawing board, keep chipping away. I knew who I was deep down. I was just having a hard time finding it. I surrounded myself with a bunch of supportive people that just, you know, brought a lot of positivity. I've been seeing a sports therapist a couple times a week, and I kid you not, you put yourself around some good people and you will find yourself again. And that is my story. But my angel over here has been holding down the fort. So love her to death. Yeah. Got daddy back to where he needs to be.
Yeah, I was gonna say, something tells me she, despite that, all those great influences, something tells me she still does the heavy lifting.
Oh yeah. She carries about 80% of it. Yeah, I mean, God, like I've been so hurt. Like I got a baseball in my ass, and this hamstring got tendinosis, you know, in my hamstring. The elbow is shredded. A couple weeks ago, I'm like, you know, maybe I'm just done playing singles. I shouldn't play singles anymore. There's so many good guys coming in. There's so many more better athletes that are in the game, and they're not 33. They don't have 4 kids. Like they're not all banged up. And I'm like, God, I'm just like, I don't want to get embarrassed and lose to people I have no business losing to. And it's all just pride talking, right? Mm-hmm. Right. And she basically, it's
that fear of expectations.
Right. Just that
fear of not living up to your own expectations. It's funny how like, from a 3-0 all the way to the highest levels of
it's always there.
We all deal with the same kind of pattern. And I love when you share about how just real you are, about how the fact that you get nervous or you doubt yourself, because I don't think people would realize that just based on the vibe you give off on court, because you're smiling, you're having a good time, you're getting energetic. I think it goes a long way for people to be able to relate to somebody like yourself, because I think most people deal with a certain level of nerves or self-doubt come tournament time, and they want to compete, but they've got to like learn to deal with that. And I love how you share like, hey, for me, like it's never fully gone away. I've just learned how to deal with it and manage it a little bit better.
No, for sure. And something my therapist has been telling me is like, anytime you have problems, or like if you're dealing with like anxiety, or you don't like trust yourself, like lean into it, meet it head to head every day and walk through it.
Just face it.
Freaking face it. Yeah. Don't put it aside. Like put it in front of your face every day and ask it what it's doing there, and then mow it over. Like just run that thing over. And, yeah, I don't know. Just it's funny too how like if you lose just the slight ounce of confidence, how all the strengths in your game you start second guessing. Like, you know, I'm second guessing my serve, or I'm second guessing my drive. But all of a sudden, if I have that ounce of confidence, like I'm not second guessing anything. Things are automatic. I know who I am. Doesn't matter who's in my draw. I've been working my butt off. I'm deserving. I'm rewarding. It's my time. And I don't know. That was my main message in St. George, is like, you know, I've been working hard. I'm deserving. It's my time. And just happy to have a decent weekend and get back in the mix and know that I'm still at that level and I'm not going anywhere.
Well, so validating for like your training and everything, right? Because when you get the result, it validates everything that you've been doing. It's like, okay, this routine, what I have been doing at home, it's enough to put me in a winning position. But I think when you haven't won in a while,
right,
sometimes you doubt what type of work you're doing. Well, maybe I need to change this up. Maybe I need to drill in a different way. Maybe I need to fly areas to get higher level people for training. But I think when you get that win, you realize, okay, training's not always going to be the exact perfect that I want it. Right. But at the end of the day, it's about mental toughness. Once I get in that moment, knowing that I have enough, knowing that I have that belief, and that can carry on the whole rest of the year and on. So happy for you, man. Excited that you were able to have so much success there, and keep it rolling. Keep it rolling.
Yeah, it's kind of funny. Like my trainer, Craig, the last like 2 months, like I think he's just been a little worried too, right? Like I'm hurt. You know, like I haven't had great results. He probably thought it was on him. And he's like trying to like, you know, change some things with my exercises, do more like eccentric exercises. That's more like injury prevention type stuff. Anyhow, him seeing me perform this weekend, seeing all the hard work and all the stuff we do and waking up 4 days a week, getting to the gym at 5:30, like it all paid off, right? And so if there's someone that's very, very happy, it's my trainer, Craig. Because he's like, bro, are we not doing the right stuff here? Yeah, you know? But honestly, like we were doing the right stuff. It was more so just getting my headspace aiming towards the right direction and honestly getting out of my own way. Putting people around me, not putting so much focus on me, trusting the people around me, putting my guard down, listening, not being so reactionary, not being so stubborn. And it's funny how, when you like do it for the people around you versus yourself, or like you're like a bit more selfless in that sense. God, it helps out a ton. Tell you what.
Yeah, you've got a higher purpose, right? You've got more to win for, more to play for.
Right. But and then anyhow, ended up playing well in men's dubs, and then directly after, ended up playing Pablo. Pablo is by far one of the coolest studs in the game. Have a ton of respect for Pablo. We play a lot alike. Go big on the serve, find forehands, and I ended up beating Pablo, I think like 11-7, 11-9 or something like that. But kudos to Pablo. Pablo played very well. I mean, that's like probably like the best that I've moved in a very long time. I felt scrappy again. I felt like my range of motion and like my center of gravity was very low. If I feel like I can get down and I'm scrappy, I feel like anytime I hit a return, if I have those variables, like it's tough to get a ball past me. So for all the singles junkies out there, something that was very beneficial in St. George was breaking down sooner, just being athletic, on the return, making my first step a little quicker, guessing at the right time. And then on the serving side, obviously, elevation's a little higher there in St. George. I was able to use my serve, to my advantage. I was able to get some more depth with the elevation. The ball's flying a little bit, so I was getting a lot more pace, and then really just kind of trusting that first strike pickleball mentality, finding as many forehands as possible, and it's a very good Saturday for me. I'll tell you what, it was a very good Saturday, and to have the family there, to have the wife there, and I mean honestly too, like I was telling my wife, like we ended up walking out of the venue on that Saturday, everybody's leaving and stuff. And I was telling her, I'm like, gosh, like I got to like remember like what this feels like, what I'm seeing right now, what I'm thinking about, how it smells. But just take all that in. Like, it's true. Like being the last one to leave the venue on a great day like that, like these are memories I always have, And so I don't know. I tried to like hang on to that and like get like a good sense of just how it felt, because next tournament I want to be in that same position. So. For sure. One thing that I'm going to mention here is that if there's one person in particular that, I mean, K-Mack and my wife obviously is my day ones. But if there's one person in particular that's on the tour that's got a lot of respect for me, teaches camps for me, anytime I have a good weekend, this guy is a real one. You know why? Because he always sends me a text. That's Andrei Daescu. I'll tell you what. Anytime I have and I do the same for him. Like I talk about a guy who's just a total boy, man. Like. And I think there's certain players that all text if they have a good weekend, but you know who the real ones are when you have a good weekend and you get a nice little friendly text, if you know what I mean. Anyhow, big shout out to Andrei. Andrei's coming off a big win at Legacy with Pesa.
So cool.
Anyhow, always been a big fan of Andrei, and probably one of the more underrated guys on the tour. I don't think he gets a lot of support and a lot of hype for his doubles game, but the guy's a monster.
Well, I don't think he's overly flashy, right? He just does everything well. And I'm pretty sure he won a double gold at Legacy as well. I'm pretty sure him and Susannah also won the mix.
Correct,
so, the guy is just dominating the APPs right now, but smart guy, great instructor too. Like, he's one of the ones we really enjoy working with, really knows the game well, fundamentally sound, and just plays within himself and just gets the W's. He's just a podium shark.
Right. And I mean, honestly too, like I think Andrei and I, like our game styles aren't similar, but as far as like the simplicity to our games, very similar, like grindy. We're going to put a lot of balls in play. We're going to make people like respect us. We're not going to give up a whole lot. And I think we both kind of have that grindy, same sort of mentality, you know?
I think it's kind of grind first and then like take a few offensive chances, but all your offensive chances are always very calculated, right? It's not like that wild up and down style. And that's where the consistency comes from, right? Because you can beat a certain caliber of player every day of the week just with your kitchen ability, the percentages. And then if you need to, you can bring a little more offense in certain matchups where, they can push you a little bit more.
Right. So in my interview after we beat Colin and Deco, it was kind of funny. Actually, Colin just posted a story a couple of days ago. And basically I said, I've been losing to Colin and Ben. It feels like since I've been in diapers. And but a low key fun fact is that I've never lost to Colin when he doesn't play with Ben. Wow! Come to find out, I have corrected. Come to find out, I've beaten Colin with everybody aside from one time in 2019. In 2019, he played with Adam Stone. Adam Stone played the left and beat Riley and I, and beat us in the bronze medal match of like the Desert Ridge tournament. I think this was like one of PPA's first tournaments. Colin definitely got back at me. So
he corrected your stat line there.
He certainly did. Knowing Colin, of course he did, right? Anyhow, and then James and I, just kind of clear everything up here. James and I are definitely playing together all year. I wasn't throwing shade at James at all. Actually, Brendon kind of started the conversation, and I just kind of followed suit, if you know what I mean. But really, it was more about RN taking my partner than it was James dropping me. So something that I may not be a fan of is when somebody has a partner. When somebody has a partner and you text that person's partner, I just think that's a little disrespectful. Nothing against Rye, it's all good. Totally get it, but let's not be doing that. And we made him pay. And we made that man pay. Granted, Rye's been kicking my ass. Rye's been kicking my ass for a long time. Totally get it. The guy's a total stud. But it did not happen on that day. So
Riley definitely wouldn't be the first person to do that. Like, this happens, obviously. There's been a lot of this happening over the last couple of years, but I kind of agree with you. I think there's kind of an ethics thing a little bit there, especially if you're kind of locked down with somebody for a while. I mean, maybe be a little bit more loyal, but then again, the other side of it is like, okay, I have this opportunity to play with someone where I feel like it gives me a really good chance to win or podium. So I get both sides, but I'm kind of more in your camp where, if somebody has a partner, it might make sense to just look at the next best available from there, but we'll see how it plays out.
But inevitably, too, from like James's end, you're kind of trading James just based on you're going to play one with Jack Sock, and so it was a good even trade on James James's side.
That makes sense. No, that makes sense.
Yeah. But the other side is a little funny.
Right. And like the whole Jack thing, I had space. Jack said he wasn't going to play, and then kind of came in and said he was going to play, and so it was all just kind of a jumble. But honestly, that's kind of how it is with partners. If you don't like solidify somebody, then it's just a little messy. Yeah, for sure. Okay, Travis and Leia. So no disrespect to Travis at all. I think Travis is a great guy, stand-up dude. He's great for the sport. Did he call out Selkirk? I have no idea. Did he call out me? People seem to think so. I think Travis and I are definitely still boys. We're still on talking terms, and something he said during his videos that he's got a lot of respect for me. He thinks I'm a stand-up guy. So I am in the same boat here, brother. But anyhow, so no opinion there. I just thought it was a little bold that he made a video like that when I thought it was just going to be him and I in that discussion, or just knowing about that topic. I didn't think it was going to go everywhere. Don't know what Selkirk thinks about that. But and then Leia. Oh man, what do we say about her? So,
can I say?
Yeah, go ahead, baby. Go ahead. Come on. Go ahead.
So I think I guess in listening, which is all I do. I don't ever say anything.
During tournaments?
No, during tournaments, during some podcasts. There seems to be a ton of emotion. You know what I mean? And I get it. I get that when you're frustrated, emotions come out and all the above. And I think you can definitely advocate for change and be a whistleblower, whatever you want to call it, right? And I think those things are good, especially in the infancy of a tour. There's going to be things that come up like delaminated paddles. But I also think that sometimes when we're emotional and making like very strong statements without thinking about the big picture, sometimes it can come off a little hot and heavy and a little bit just, I don't think you're going to accomplish what you're wanting to accomplish, and it's going to be taken in all the wrong ways, because right now I feel like it is to a certain degree. So I think, she brought up PEDs, she brought up delaminated paddles, she brought up like cheating in general, like all of these things, right?
And
which
she
I think
does not like Salamane, I'll tell you what.
Right,
Whoa.
Right.
Whoa.
But when you do
I want to see those two with boxing gloves. Honestly, that's Championship Sunday. In Newport, come on. This is it. No. This is it. Okay. DJ Selkirk is more than ready. Okay. Play their theme song. Have them go out. Put them in a freaking octagon. Octagon, Championship Sunday on championship court. Throw some 10-ounce gloves on them and let the hands fly.
No, but
let the hands.
I would pay
big money. Come on.
Stop. What I'm trying to say is, yes, there's plenty of things that need to change, and there's plenty of rules that need to be in place, and there's plenty of testing methods and things that need to be coming out and things like that. But there also needs to be a realistic approach, or it just comes off like blind and crazy a little bit. Like, I think there has to be a realistic approach that says, okay, if this is a rule, we're going to now say this is a rule. There needs to be a grace period. There needs to be time for everybody to become compliant. Like, paddle manufacturers make thousands of paddles. They can't just become compliant overnight. Players, they have a lot online. There's no written rule. Like, I guess I don't really know how a lot of like the PED stuff works, but I would assume that if something is not a rule right now that you can't, which I know she's even said that there is no written rule, then there needs to be a grace period when there is a rule to allow the player. There's just too much status. There's too much money on the line in the sport right now. There's companies that are coming in, and maybe the tour is only X amount of dollars, but these other companies are bringing in a ton of money to the sport. I understand the betting and all of that, but I think that there needs to be a realistic approach to this, and it needs to not be based on emotion. It needs to be based on facts. It needs to be based on what other sports have done. It needs to be
clear evidence.
And it can't be.
How many rumors are just like spraying left and right?
And
it's just messy.
It's messy, and it's not fair. And I wonder too, if we get to a certain degree, is there like a defamation thing that comes out? If you can't really prove something about someone and it's not true, and you're saying all these things.
I know there's certain players in the industry that are sick of getting bullied. Not going to say by who, but and they are pretty close to doing something like that. So it's sad.
Wow.
Like
it's hard.
Right.
Well, it's hard when you work your butt off and you want to address it, but you don't, because you don't want to give credit to it. And I'm sure there people are abusing it, but like.
Right, of course.
You can't make an example that way. You can't just come out and say like, oh, this person's this and this paddle's that and this is that. Like, I don't know. I think there has to be. So,
and something that was mentioned by Leia on the Pickle Pod is that, she thinks that some of the performance enhancing drugs are Adderall. Something that I have heard from one of the pro tennis players is that there's a wide range of tennis players that use it on the ATP tour.
There's so many articles and studies on that. Like I think most of the tours, and yes, they all have prescriptions for it because they're prescribed it, but most of them are on it.
Right,
so,
right.
Yeah,
and I know a handful of pro pickleball players that also use Adderall.
Okay.
And I mean, instead of spreading rumors, let's have clear evidence. It's not good for the industry. It makes certain players look bad. I know, like, I don't know who Leia's mad at or why she's like just dropping grenades and dropping nukes everywhere and trying to be that person. And she mentioned on the Pickle Pod that, you know, she's owning her character and, you know, and I'm sure there's plenty of her fans that love her and love the way she is because she's bold, she's fearless. But also I have read plenty of comments on social media where, you know, there's people that are talking very negatively of her. So she's just doing it to herself. One, you know, if there's one thing that I like respect, I guess, about her persona is like it's kind of like a Matt Wright. She owns what she's doing. Sure. And so I guess if you are going to act that way, we've talked about this, own your character. And, you know, I think if there's something you have full control of, it's I guess, owning your personality, right?
And here's my point.
Well, like you said, she's polarizing. She's very polarizing. And that's not always a bad thing because I think the people that like what she's doing are going to be very loyal to her, but she's also going to have some people that are very much not a fan of her as well. And I don't think there's anything necessarily wrong. Like you said, owning your character, just kind of know that that's the part you're playing by being very loud about these subjects. And to me, just my opinion, I like the fact that she's kind of started some of these conversations because some of these need to be had, like bringing the fact, you know, the PEDs, for example, like that's something that I'm glad that we're talking about, as well as the delamination with the paddles. But where I think at times she may go too far is using names, implying that people are definitely, you know, cheating and getting that unfair advantage. I would more like it if it was more like a hypothetical question, like, okay, if players are doing blank, then what do we need to know about it? Or what do we need to do about it? Because I suspect this is happening, rather than saying like it's definitely happening. She very well could be right. I just don't think that she has the evidence to know she's right. I think she's making a guess, and she very well could be right.
And I think that's where I find fault with it. Like she could very well be right, but if you don't have proof, then you open yourself up to not, and then you open it up to like not being treated as a real problem or a real thing that needs to be addressed. Like you kind of take, when you put too much emotion into it, and you put accusations into it, then it takes the credit out of it, you know? And so, and for I think my only point to this and the reason why I say anything on it, and it's glad, you know, it's good, yes, that the subjects are being brought up, but in the same regard, I just hope, because I feel like this has happened in the past and it's just the infancy of the sport. I hope that because this is such a emotional response and such a strong response, that there is not an emotional reaction in the way that we handle this. I hope that the reaction, even though it's a very strong emotional response, I hope that the reaction is very calculated and it's right and it's fair and it's done the proper way, and it's so it keeps its credibility and the tour can keep its credibility and it's done the right way. And we're not just like, oh yeah, let's just slam a rule in because, you know, a ton of people are talking about it. The keyboard warriors are crazy and yada, yada, yada. Like it needs to be thought out. There needs to be someone outside like that knows, like, you know, fresh perspective, non-related to the issue, needs to come in and say, hey, this is how we approach this in other sports. This is what we should be doing and making informed decisions versus just like quick trying to decide like what they're going to do. If that makes any sense.
So I guess what we're trying to say here is that nothing against Leia. Love that she's owning her character and going about it the way she is. She's a great competitor. Obviously, you know, one of the best in the game. I know her very well. I grew up with Leia. Her dad was my tennis coach, kind of all throughout high school. And early on in her career, she moved to Spokane. K-Mack and I, for the first year and a half, you know, kind of played a part in her progression as a pickleball player, kind of took her under our wing. Don't know if she would say that, if you know what I mean. Wink, wink. We definitely sat in her corner, helped her, you know, in singles and stuff like that. Anyhow, I've got the most utmost respect for Leia and wish her all the best. I think what we're trying to say here is that there just needs to be clear evidence in some of these issues versus dropping nukes and dropping grenades everywhere and
calculated moves. Right. Make sure that we don't implode our own
calculated versus blind moves.
Let's make the right decisions, and that's not for the players to do. It's for the players to bring up the issues, but it's for some professionals to guide us through.
Right. Anytime that I post a highlight reel on my socials, probably 20% of the comments is all keyboard warriors, and they're talking about how high my belly button is. My belly button's very high. It actually goes all the way up to my chin. Don't know if you knew that. It does. It goes up to my chin, baby. But anyhow, no, there's a wide range of players. I played some players this last weekend, one in the men's doubles final, one in the quarterfinal of men's. LJ has been known to not like the serve either. Anyhow, I don't know. I just think some of these players need to show a bit more class on the court, show a bit more appreciation to somebody's craft. And I just think it's sad how refs are being bullied, refs are being verbally abused by certain players that don't like somebody's serve or don't like a white and gold paddle. That's another one. There's so many players, not so many, but there's a couple in particular now that one in particular in St. George wanted my paddle to get tested before the match, so they went and they tested it, or they went and looked at the colors. However you test that. I ended up getting my paddle back. It was all good. Anyhow, there's just so many complaints now, and I'm not a fan. I think we can all agree here that neither of us are known to be complainers or take that route of not showing etiquette or not showing sportsmanship. But plain and simple, focus on yourself. We all want the same thing here. We're all in it for the same thing. Everybody, the sport's heading in the right direction. Pros are getting brand deals. The money's looking better. I just think I'm not a fan of the classless, antics on the court about the paddle being white and gold or somebody's serve. Plain and simple. Focus on yourself. Don't bully the refs. The refs are there making peanuts. And it just looks bad. I'm just not a fan. And it seems like there's so many pros now that fall from the same tree, and it's all just nonsense. Brands could care less about that stuff. Fans could care less about that stuff. I could care less about that stuff. Just be a better human.
No, I think it's, again, back to following the rules and being less about emotion. It's easy to call out someone and that's what the refs have been doing, right? I guess any player that's done that or has set up a match with Tyson, they'll tell the ref right away, hey, I want you to keep an eye on his serve the whole match. And then they dedicate someone to do so, which is fine. And that it is what it is. But at that point too, that was based off of an emotional or a subjective request too. It's not that there were a bunch of serves and then now they want it to be watched. It's from the get-go, keep an eye on this and don't wear that or that color and that sort of thing.
Well, talking about emotion, there was something that was stated by all the referees in St. George, and basically they said in their little intro spiel anytime you got on a court was that if you asked the crowd if they saw it in or out, you're going to be penalized.
Oh,
so
wow.
Put your panties on the right way and buck up.
Ask the refs, then be done.
Right.
I mean, my 2 cents on is it's just the wrong setting for it, right? I feel like the people that complain about your serve, I honestly feel like they're putting themselves at a competitive disadvantage because they're spending so much of their energy trying to beat down the refs, or if they think they're going to rattle you. It's just really dumb because people have complained and challenged your serve for a long time. We've looked at it in slow motion. And I'll say this. If Tyson's serve is occasionally high, there's a myriad of other pros who are in the same category. Right. And it's unrealistic right now, in my opinion, to really harp on a referee. Like I said, they're not paid that much. It's very tough to tell the exact height of contact in fast motion. And so this is more one of the things that you need to talk about maybe on the forum of saying, okay, if some of them are illegal, what could we do? How could we maybe change pickleball as a whole to be able to tell? It's just extremely difficult. And I know that some people have said, well, maybe we need to go completely to the drop serve. It would make that simpler. I'm hoping we don't do that just because I'd rather see the serves more like the way they are. And the same thing with the paddle and the color of the paddle. That's just not the right setting for that complaint. If it's an issue on the court, then maybe we can talk about paddles not being able to be white or whatever. I haven't experienced that. I've heard people complain about it with me using the power air, that they're saying visually something about the white is making them lose the ball a little bit. Maybe that's the case, but I just think it's unrealistic to hammer down on these refs in that moment right there, to like all of a sudden make these big rules of, okay, that paddle is illegal because you can't see off of it. It needs to be done beforehand, in my opinion. And as far as telling if a serve is high, I think it's really challenging. If yours is yours probably is borderline.
It's borderline, as with Deckel's, as with Ben.
Yeah, exactly. I would even argue as it should be, because you're a competitor.
Professional,
as a competitor, as a pro, you're trying to push the envelope. If you're not trying to push the envelope in these categories, you should be. You're putting yourself at a disadvantage. So it's about the organization to regulate that and find a different way to make it fair. But there's so many people. I've played against Deckel, where this was a few years ago, where his serve used to be extremely high, and a referee actually called it for an illegal serve once in the match. His serve didn't change a bit, and he only called it the one time.
Right.
And so it was very clear to me that it's just, I wouldn't want to be an official in fast motion to be able to tell you what is or isn't above the belly. But it's extremely hard. But I just don't know why, if they feel like they're intimidating you or trying to get under your skin, it just doesn't seem like it's very effective, because this has been a complaint for a long time. And everybody has watched
day one.
Your serve under a microscope, right?
Well,
they've slowed it down.
Right.
And if one of them here and there is occasionally high, that's possible. But it puts you in the category of a lot of people. It looks like Ben's motion is relatively high to me as well. I don't know. It's just the wrong setting for that complaint, in my opinion.
Well, it's funny too. Like, aside from all that, I think the most of the comments that we get, a lot of our reels are like the slow mo, and so it's kind of funny. There's just a lot of people out there that actually don't even know the true definition of the rule, the service rule. They've all been taught. It's like a game of telephone. Like, their local ambassador at the park told them this, and then someone else told them that, and so nobody. And it's just funny to me to see some of these people take such strong stances and say such like terribly awful things and not technically know the rules. So it's kind of funny to see fans hop on and like posting definition of the rule, and people.
Well, the funny thing too is that
they're totally wrong.
The girl that had my paddle challenged because of the color also played Hayden Patriquin. Hayden plays with a white and gold Franklin. Nothing was stated when she played Hayden, but all of a sudden she plays me. Check his paddle. Check it. I'm like, for gosh sake, there's just so many immature people in the sport, and it's too bad. So it is too bad. Worry about yourself. Be an adult. Show some respect. And at the end of the day, the refs are there to neutralize the situation. And the refs, they're almost volunteering their times. Like, don't verbally abuse the ref. Don't get on them. I mean, for like in the men's doubles final, the last 3 games, anytime I served, if you go back and look at the match, look at Don Stanley. Don Stanley, I guarantee his legs were so sore for like 2 weeks later, because every time I served, guess what he did? He would have to squat down. No, bro, he's squatting down by the net, looking to see where my point of contact is on my serve. And for all the viewers out there, it's always at 3:30. It is. It's always at 3:30. It's never above 3:30, right? 3:30 is the perfect time.
3:30.
Perfect time. Yeah, give Don Stanley a shout out.
Come on.
The effort is always
there.
He deserves a lot of credit.
He does. Talking about
what he does.
Talking about the white paddle too, like the old Onyx Premier, same thing. That thing was white as could be. Playing Matt Wright and playing Lucy. Yes, you did lose it a little bit, but am I going to complain at the ref, or am I going to say I lost because I lost my vision by 10%? Gosh, no.
Different shades of white.
Right. Too funny. Let's see here.
Speaking of immaturity, do you want to touch on the next one?
What?
Just the Daytona incident that was on your.
Yeah. So
no more host families.
Hey, no more host families. Yeah, I think there was some funny business going on in Daytona.
I have it up.
Oh, go ahead. Basically, 4 pros ruined it by some hanky-panky morning business and somebody peeing in a planter. And anyhow, keep your shirt on. Don't be peeing in somebody's planter.
No, in all seriousness, it does kind of stink for the pros.
No, it sucks. I mean, I would assume probably 60 to 70%, if not more, use those host families.
Yeah, and
even like some of the top pros that are like in the top 5.
No, for sure, especially if they're trying to use their money that they're getting from the tour to provide for their families. And they're not trying to spend.
I know what we're paying in
housing.
Newport Beach for like a week. They're staying with the kids. And it sucks.
It does.
Basically takes my appearance fee away.
No, for sure. So I think that it stinks that a few bad apples kind of ruined it for the guys that are really using it for its purpose. And I do think, yes, there's a point where the tour it does have to develop, and pros shouldn't be necessarily staying with host families that they don't know. But that was kind of the beauty of pickleball, I think. But and I think too, like a lot of the fans, it was super cool for them. I know it could get a lot though on the other side too, and maybe be a disadvantage to a pro, having to, give a private lesson at every dinner and, be engaged and on all the time. But I think more so pros
K-Mack loves that.
Yeah. I think pros saw it as a benefit. And I think it's sad, like, to not respect it does give it a black eye, and it gave those players a black eye, and supposedly they're going to be reprimanded as such. But I feel for the players that no longer have an opportunity for the tour to hook them up with host families.
I ended up texting Liv for Newport Beach because I didn't want to drop the big wad on a freaking house there in Newport, which is so stupidly expensive. I texted Liv, who's basically taking Sam's spot until Sam comes back. I think Sam's coming back for Newport. Yeah. So Sam's back. Sammy, Sammy's going to be balling out in a suit on Sunday.
He's going to be looking sharp.
Sammy in a suit. Anyhow, so I texted Liv. I'm like, hey, any chance there's a host that has a 5-bedroom house with nobody in it that my family can destroy for a week? She said, well, with what happened in Daytona, that is not allowed anymore. So if you have any resources or if you have any contacts in that area, you can reach out, but don't come and knocking at the PPA's door.
If you guys have a chance, go read the gal who was nice enough to lend her house and be a host. She actually
get her on a podcast.
She made a very
get her on a pod.
She was more bringing, I think, bigger eyes to it as what it made for the sport and all. If there's players out there that kind of feel that they're celebrities and can kind of trash and take advantage, that maybe that would give the sport a bad look overall if that stuff kind of continues. Which
she's looking out.
It's true. Yeah. She loves the sport and she doesn't want it to go down that path. So
right. K-Mack, give me your thoughts on Susannah, Barr, and Zane. I know you're a big fan of Miss Barr.
Yeah, I've said this for years because I played a few tournaments just kind of locally with Susannah, and I just got the sense as a partner. So a few things, like she's extremely mentally tough, right? She doesn't seem to get tight or nervous like a lot of people do, or doesn't really give that off. Back then, her finishing power was very noticeable. That especially in mixed, she had no problem really putting the ball away, which is a nice thing to have in a female partner. But I think for the longest time, she hasn't gotten the most credit because as far as being an athlete, as far as her movement, her quickness, maybe it's not to the level of some of these other younger gal, pros. And then her game, and I don't mean this as a slide to her at all, her game isn't the prettiest. Her technique isn't conventional all the time. But when you look at just more of every checkpoint of her game, she dinks consistently forehand and backhand, but not just consistently. She's able to use spin and counteract spin. She understands how to drop the head of the paddle and initiate yellow zone balls attacks
down
to keep the guy honest. And she'll go at anybody.
No, she's very bold.
She'll throw in the lob. And so I think with Zane and her, they're a fun team to watch. I think there's an argument now for each of them, mixed doubles is their best event. I wouldn't have said that maybe a year ago with Zane, with how well he was doing in singles, but there's so many better singles players now. Zane's getting much more aggressive in doubles in general. I think that for each of them, mixed is their best event. And I think, honestly, they're just a very good team that people shouldn't sleep on going forward.
Right. I fully agree. And big shout out to James and Anna. That's their second title together. That team has gotten a lot. Actually, sorry, is it their first title or second title?
I think it's their first. I was going to say, where's the... I'm pretty sure it was their first.
Yeah, sorry, that's James' second title with Catherine. Sorry. So that's James and Anna's first title. Kudos to them. Those guys played very well. Ended up beating up on AJ and Jesse in the finals there. Don't know what's going on with that partnership. Always been a big fan of AJ. It seems like there could be little tension there. Not gonna speak too much on it, but anyhow, always been a big fan of AJ's game. And he didn't have a great start to the year. It seems like he's starting to clean his stuff up and play a lot better.
Yep.
AJ and Travis ended up losing in a tight 3-gamer to Deckel and Colin. And something that B Long told me is that he likes the matchup against Deckel. Not to share his secrets, but he does not like the matchup as well against AJ. So, Brendon's ex poker guy. It's all about his matchups. It's all about his patterns. And anyhow, so yeah, kudos to James. Go ahead. So
Brendon's saying he likes going head to head with Deckel, but he doesn't like going head to head with AJ.
Well, as far as like in the cross pattern, right? Like he just likes the variables of the cross pattern when he's on the left and he's going cross against Deckel versus AJ.
Right.
He still likes the matchup against AJ. Obviously, just not as well as he liked the matchup against Deckel. So.
Gotcha.
But yeah, it's something that James is doing. I'm not going to take credit for. But James is he's going bigger on the serve. He's going bigger on the serve, and James, was just kind of struggling in transition a little bit. Was having a hard time dropping and getting in, and that was all simply because he wasn't doing enough on the serve. Now he's getting a lot more shape on the serve. He's getting a lot more depth, and. He's able to really use his ground strokes. He's able to just get shorter returns, which we all like, and his drop consistency is much better. Anyhow, that's a very good team. Don't know if that team is going to go to 5 against Annalie and Ben. Some people on socials are talking about how maybe that's Ben and Anna's new matchup or new rival. We will see. Catherine and I are definitely in the mix, so don't be counting us out. And sure. I was heartbroken after we lost to Susannah and Zane. We didn't play well at all. I mean, kudos to those guys. No disrespect at all. We just were unable to bring it. Meg was there, and I was kind of losing my head for a little bit. But yeah, and Susannah. I mean, talking about Susannah, man, like she's tipped out on the serve. She's tipped out on the drive. I mean, kind of like a Dylan. Same thing. Like the technique looks very similar. Leans very, very well, and can like use a lot of spin out of the air. I think she gave me 2 bags early on, like this little like tip down hold off the bounce, put one in my belly button, put one in my chest. Finally, after that, I took a little step back, took the old RN method, buy yourself a little time. And, anyhow, very good team, and just going to be an interesting year in mix. I mean, Riley's trying to figure out who he's going to play with. You got AJ and Jesse. Callie and Jade's a pretty good team. So I think mix is kind of a toss up. Like at least second through fourth is kind of a toss up.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Obviously, Ben and Annalie are dominant, but like betting is starting to come into the sport. And the one event I would be extra nervous to bet on is mixed, right? Because there's so much depth. There's so many good teams. It's just a matter of who's kind of riding that energy that day and playing well. But you're right. Other than Ben and Annalie, who've been obviously pretty dominant, there's a lot of people in the conversation that on a given day can find a podium.
For sure. Okay, so I just threw out the first pitch for the Arizona Diamondbacks. Great day. Had wifey there. Kids did not come. Thought they'd be a little too crazy at the game. And I was staying at Brad's house, in Phoenix for a couple days and got some training in. And anyhow, it was a great trip at Brad's house. I threw, probably 20 pitches. Kind of a funny story. Brad's buddy Daryl.
Warm it up.
Yeah, right. Brad's buddy Daryl brought over a couple mitts, brought over a ball, and he's like, okay. He's like, He's like, I'm going to put Brad right against the glass. Like Brad, like the side of his house, it's like all glass, right? And so he's like, I'm going to put Brad right here. You have to throw. He like measured the distance. He's like, you got to throw from the pool and you have to throw
over the pool
and you have to throw 10 strikes. And obviously there's this big glass wall behind him, right? So anyhow,
Don't miss.
I was able to go 10 for 10. Didn't have a whole lot of pace on it, but the direction was good. And so, going on, it was kind of funny because I got to the venue, did a bunch of media stuff. Selkirk sponsored it, so it was like pickleball day there at the game on like a street right next to the stadium.
Pickle roll court.
They had a pickle roll court. They had like a Selkirk demo table. People are trying paddles. Did some media. Did like a little meet and greet. And anyhow, so they made me my own jersey. Had the chest open. Didn't button anything up. And I thought it'd be kind of cool to throw out the first pitch, obviously with the shirt being
unbuttoned.
Being unbuttoned. Made sure to wear my Skechers shoes, made sure to wear my Skechers socks and my Skechers shorts.
Got to represent.
So got down to the field. It's like 6:15. We're going to throw the pitch at 6:30. Luckily, there was only like 30% of the people in the stadium. So wasn't a packed house. Made the first pitch that much easier. But I'm taking photos with some people down on the field. And right before I go out, one of the staff people came over and he's like, hey, love the fits. You look great. But he's like, you got to button that up. And I'm like, what? And he's like, bro, he's like, you can't have that. He's like, you got to button that up. So anyhow, went out, I buttoned up my shirt, went out there. They also told me that I couldn't stand on the rubber. So for all the keyboard warriors that thinks I'm a wussy or whatever you want to call me because I wasn't on the rubber, that was not on me and it is not allowed. You damn know that I was dreaming about throwing a sinker on the rubber. And anyhow,
true baseball fans probably know that that's a thing.
Yeah, but two things got taken away from me. Had to button up my shirt and I couldn't throw from the rubber. So anyhow, I ended up walking out there, threw from like the bottom of the mound, had a little shape to it, but was probably more of like a hybrid drop, like a half drive, half drop, got down, didn't have any topspin on it, was probably about 55 miles an hour. And the guy who caught it was actually a pitcher, nice guy, follows pickleball, follows a YouTube channel, knows you, K-Mack. And, something he told me is he said, make sure you kick Ben Johnson's ass. I said 10-4. Anyhow, super cool experience. Wifey and I had a great time. And I don't know. I never thought I'd be throwing out the first pitch like that and was able to, make it home. And like going in, I'm like, okay, like if I'm going to miss, it's going to be a good miss. It's going to be high. Because all week long, like people are texting me. They were like, hey, just make sure you don't roll it into home. And anyhow,
right.
So,
I think CT. We even sent you the video, kind of razzing you a little bit when we found out of the 50 Cent first.
Yeah, right,
so bad.
Right.
Completely the wrong direction
for sure. And Travis Kelce the previous week tried to throw it super hard, like tried to throw like a fastball, and literally it went directly down
into the dirt.
It went directly down. So
it was so funny too. Yeah.
No, right, for sure. And honestly, like I was watching YouTube videos
of all the worst ones
Tuesday morning just to take a look at like how people throw or like what the whole thing's about or like some of the bad throws. So I made sure to get educated and get my mind right. Do a little preparation going in. And
I would not have watched all the bad pitches. That would have made me more nervous. But he definitely did. I think you guys started it, and then he he proceeded to look up all the worst pitches.
Looked at all the worst case scenario things, and then it got better from there.
Right.
And I'm just gonna read some of these comments because I got completely roasted on social media. Completely roasted. Nobody's happy about the pitch. Even though I made it home, look good, nobody likes it. So one comment in particular is delaminated bicep right there. Way too fast off the rip. Here's a positive comment. Good. So awesome, Tyson, and great throw. Let's see here. Another one said, a dart, laugh out loud, love it. He did make it to the plate, but more like a lollipop versus a dart. Still the most electrifying man in sports. Love you. Somebody said that was 40 miles an hour. Somebody said bringing back the knuckleball. A dink tight pitch dropping in the kitchen. Somebody said effing gas. Some serious heat there. Cade Nemeth said, I just sent that ball over 450 sign, dead center.
That's perfect. Caden throwing a little shade at you.
And then Johnny Goldberg said, didn't even step up to the rubber. Come on, dog. Expected more, my friend. That was a girl's pitch. Memes of Pickleball said that was the third shot drop to the catcher.
I think that's my favorite one.
Yeah,
it was definitely you threw a drop.
So this is the best one. Have no idea who this guy is, and told him to come to a TM camp. He basically he used the P word.
Oh,
the old He used the P word, and he said, "P, throw from the mound and button up your jersey. You ain't all that, brother."
Whoa.
Oh, I said, hey, come to a K-Mack camp for free. He'll take care of you.
Yeah, just put him on me. It'll be my project.
And then this person said, all you underfilled jock straps out there flapping your lips would probably be in a fetal position if you had to show up in front of a crowd and do something like that. Love you, Kirk Cross. Thank you, brother. One more positive comment, and I will be done here. It said, never mind some of these comments. I was worried that you would hurt your shoulder for pickleball, and then I could not watch your awesome matches. Looking forward to seeing you inject sock. Anyhow, great experience. I'm throwing the first pitch out for the Mariners sometime in September, so be looking out for that. And
heck yeah.
I think that's it for me. K-Mack, any last words here for our viewers, or do you have anything fun coming up, or you've been pumping some iron, getting a little stronger,
Yeah, I mean, maybe I don't know. Let's go with yes. So it looks like I'm going to be commentating not this next event in Newport, but the rest of the PPAs throughout the year. So it looks like they're going to be using me on a regular basis going forward. So
as they should. Best commentator in the game. We all know it. Nothing against Dave, nothing against Cameron.
By far.
Nothing against.
I like to bring, I think, just because it's what I do all the time, I like to bring a little more education, a little bit more coaching and strategy. They don't give you a lot of time to talk with, and, all the commentators have that issue of kind of find your moment, pick your moment. But I'm excited that they're going to keep me around, looks like, for the rest of the year. So be listening for me there. And then as far as that, just check the website. There's plenty of TM camps coming up, and I guarantee there's one near you. So come get McGuffin or K-Mack or some hybrid of both, but it'll be a good time. Newsletter
every Thursday. You can check out Kyle's teaching tip every Thursday on the newsletter. You can subscribe by going to TysonMcGuffin.com. Also, my brand is me as an athlete, me as a dad, me as a coach. We kind of highlight that every week. If you guys want to buy merch, you can go to TysonMcGuffin.com as well and pick up some merch there. Also, too, Skechers just came out with my white and pink Viper Pros. If you guys want a pair of Viper Pros just like this, not with the Miller Lite in it, but if you want a pair of Viper Pros just like this, head over to Skechers.com and pick yourself up a pair of the best looking shoes in pickleball. Sweetie, love you. Keep being an angel. Keep my mind right, and let's keep crushing. Thanks, K-Mack.
See you guys.
My name is Tyson McGuffin. This is the McGuffin Show. We'll see you guys next episode.